Hi guys, Kim Schofield here, back with another project today on my YouTube channel. Today I am going to be working on a Bible journaling layout featuring a new stamp set from Sweet and Sassy, and I'll also be creating a gelato background. So here's that complete stamp set. I think it's so cute. I love the little stream and the deer and the little porcupine, or maybe he's a hedgehog. I don't know. He's cute, whatever he is. So on my art journal page here, this is in the Psalms that I'm working, I have already laid down a layer of clear gesso, which I'm finding is excellent for making sure that no products bleed through your pages. So once that was dry, I'm kind of experimenting here. I'm actually using some gelatos, and I wasn't really sure how they were going to react on top of gesso. And what I found was it was fine as long as you add a little bit of water, which I did using a baby wipe to make them blend. I did find that trying to blend them just with your finger did not work really well on top of the gessoed surface. But I am loving using a clear gesso on my Bible pages because it doesn't, you get a little bit of wrinkling, which you'll see when this is completely finished. And I haven't ironed the pages yet, which will help to get rid of that. But it's very minimal, and I don't get any bleed through from the gelatos or from the watercolors that I end up using. So I am drying the gelatos and everything a little bit because it was a little bit damp from using the baby wipe. So I just dried that with my heat tool. And now I'm going to start building my scene. So I'm not real worried. This didn't come out really super dark. I think I found out my archival ink pad was not working that great. It was a little lacking in ink. So I just went back over some of the lines with a black waterproof marker after I was finished with stamping. So I had created a few masks of the deer so that I could have the little hedgehog sitting behind the deer and then the stream going behind the deer's head, and then I'm adding the mountains. And now I'm going to put some trees down, and I created some masks of those little trees as well so I could make one of the trees look like it was behind the larger one. And then I'm adding the little mushroom. That is so cute. I love it. And then the butterfly, and I'm going to add some of the little clouds, and I wanted the cloud to be behind the butterfly as well. And then I'm going to add some of the little teeny tiny hearts, and that's all included in the set as well. And then before I get to my coloring, I will go over those lines and make sure that they're a little darker than they are right there. And you can see that they're darker. So I started out thinking I was going to use my Zig Clean Color water brushes, but I decided not to. The color just was not that deep. And so I ended up using Prismacolor watercolor pencils, which I love these. The Prisma pencils are so good on art journal pages. It just works really well on the smooth surface, and I absolutely love it. You get really deep color. And you can use a watercolor brush if you want to or not. You don't have to. I ended up doing a little bit of both. I used the watercolor, and I'm just going back in with a water brush. So I did watercolor with them, and then some of my layers I just left. So you'll notice when you get to the very end of the video, you'll see that the little stream behind the deer is blue. For some reason, I had in my mind when I was doing this that it was a road. And then my husband had a good laugh saying, "That's nice. You put the poor deer down right in the road, you know." I don't know why I thought it was a road when I was coloring it. And then I ended up seeing someone else's project posted online, and I thought, oh, good grief. That's right. It's a stream, which goes along with the verse that's included with the stamp set. So you'll see me coloring it as a road, but it's not a road, it's a stream. And in my final pictures, you'll see that it's blue. And all I did was go in and color with a blue watercolor pencil right on top, and it covered up the brown with no problem. So I'm just continuing to add layers, a little bit I'm starting with my lighter shades and filling that in, and then going in with a darker shade of the of my pencils and using that for anywhere I want a little bit of shading. And I'm kind of keeping all of my shading to the left-hand side of the page. And so every once in a while, I am going in and I'm drying with my heat tool because that is adding a lot of water onto the page. And because I have the gesso, it's not sinking into the page. It'll eventually dry on its own, but it'll sit on the page, on top of the page, much longer than if I hadn't put that gesso down. But I'm such a fan of doing that. But I'm definitely experimenting in the art journal and trying to figure out what works best and what mediums work best. I have found that I love the pencils a lot, love adding a little bit of paint or gelatos in the background just to create some quick color in the background. The gelatos are a great medium because they are transparent, so I can still read everything on my pages once the color is completely dry, so that's not too bad. And I wanted to create kind of a sunset scene a little bit, so using a little bit of those yellows and the pinks to get that kind of look. This is a great stamp set. I need to get working on making a card with it as well, because it's so versatile. There's so many images in the set that you can just do so much with it. It's so cute. This has got to be one of my favorites. I was very excited when this one showed up in my mailbox. So now I'm just adding a little bit more color, continuing to add some of that shadowing. And I decided to add a little bit of green there. And I'm just using some deli paper to protect the other pages from getting any color on them. So now I'm completely done with my coloring, and I am using a white gel pen to add a little bit of white on the spots on the deer and the deer's tail, and also on the tops of the mountains there. And I had a few little dots here and there, just to act as a little bit of highlight because there's a lot of brown on the page. And especially around the little hedgehog, I added a few little white spots that you could see just the shape of his body a little bit better. And then a little bit of highlight on all of those hearts and my clouds. So you can see he stands out a little bit more once I add that white around the shape of the outside of him. And I'm adding a little bit more color now, just to kind of deepen up the creases in the deer's legs and create a little bit more shadowing there. And I ended up adding some white gel pen here, but I ended up covering it up. I didn't like it very much. So now I have my sentiment and I've placed it where I want it to go. And I'm using a very large Tim Holtz grid acrylic block. And right now I'm just prepping my stamp. So this is when I realized that my ink pad was lacking in ink. But sometimes when you have a clear stamp, if you stamp a few times with an acrylic ink, you'll get a nice impression. And so that's when I realized, hey, this ink pad doesn't stamp very well. So I moved on to a stamp pad from Simon Says Stamp, and I really like this ink as well. It doesn't bleed through the pages. Even if you don't have any gesso, you get very minimal bleed through, where the archival will bleed through quite a bit. And so I'm just lining that up on my page, and I'll just stamp that down. And I'm just rubbing my hand over the block to make sure I get a good impression. And that worked out really well. And I did want to heat set that. So you see, there was a little bit of ink that got on the block. And so I am just using a baby wipe to wipe off the gelato, drying that, and then just add a little bit back in. And that kind of covers that spot up. And then I'm going to use my watercolor markers not my markers, I'm sorry, my watercolor pencils to fill in the little hearts that are included in the sentiment. And now I'm just making sure everything is very dry, making sure all of the black ink is dry. And then you know, nothing is really complete without a little bit of Wink of Stella glitter pen. I love that thing. So that's about it for me today. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you like it. If you do, give me a thumbs up. You can see my stream there. I added my stream in blue along with some white gel pen in the background. All of the where you can buy the products is listed in the description below. And you can visit my blog at paperypetals.blogspot.com. Thanks so much.